Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Union Square. Hello, San Francisco. It's a beautiful, sunny day here, and the fog has lifted, perhaps like the collective proverbial COVID fog that we've all been stuck in for the last year. My name is Karin. I'm the Executive Director of the Union Square Business Improvement District, and we are so pleased to see so many of you here today and so many visitors. We have missed you all. We have missed the residents. We've missed the visitors, the workers here in Union Square who come here to dine in our restaurants, to stay in our fine hotels, and to shop in our beautiful shops. But we know that they will come back. And we know that Mayor Breed has been so focused this past year on keeping us all safe and healthy, and we appreciate that. She's been laser focused on getting everyone vaccinated and making sure we are socially distanced, and it's working. We know that the numbers are down, and we know that we are healthy. So excellent job, Mayor Breed. Yes, round of applause, absolutely. But now it is time to turn to recovery and renewal. And we are strong. We know here in San Francisco we are resilient and we are strong. We have survived earthquakes, we have survived fires, and now this pandemic. And we will come back. Our Union Square ambassadors, our cleaning and safety ambassadors, worked tirelessly here in Union Square throughout the pandemic to enhance existing city services, of course, police and PD and DPW, to keep the area clean and safe. They have worked hard to keep area so very welcoming, and thank you. They've also worked alongside the retired SFPD ambassadors, which has been an incredible program, which was the idea of Mayor London Breed, and we are so grateful to have that extra layer of safety here in Union Square. And we know that there are more reinforcements along the way, which we'll hear about. We convened an economic recovery task force here in Union Square, and the priority that came out of that was really activation. Let's liven up these public spaces, starting with this beautiful park here, the Union Square Park, where people come to celebrate. We come to celebrate the holidays with the great Macy's tree. People come here to protest, hopefully peacefully. People come to people watch in our cafes, which are open for business. So hopefully they will do that again. And now if we could just get our beloved cable car back and running before September, how about June when the tourists are here? That would really be a signal that San Francisco is open and ready for business. But without further ado, I would like to introduce someone who needs no introduction, Mayor London Breed.
Thank you, Karin, and I am excited not only to be in the heart of Union Square, but I'm just excited to be anywhere in San Francisco nowadays as we begin the process to reopen and reimagine what San Francisco can be as we come out of this pandemic. It's been a tough year. It's been a tough year because our focus was on public health and saving lives. And we know it's been a tough year for businesses. It's been a tough year for tourism. It's been a tough year for employees and others throughout San Francisco. And we keep talking about this light at the end of the tunnel. Well, today it's bright in Union Square, and I'm feeling the light, and I'm excited about the future of our city. I just wanted to take this opportunity to really acknowledge some of the amazing people joining us today. A few you will hear from, but specifically the new director of the Arts Commission in San Francisco, Ralph Remington, is joining us. And Ralph, you're going to have to take off your mask so they can recognize you when they see you out in the streets.
Fully vaccinated.
And some of us know she's the new director of Grants for the Arts, but she's been involved in advocating for so many arts programs and businesses in San Francisco. We have joining us Valley Brown, the director of Grants for the Arts. And our new director of the Office of Economic and Workforce Development, Kate Sophus. Many of you know her from SF Made and all the wonderful things that she's doing. And you'll hear from the other two speakers that are joining us, and I will introduce them. And I want to recognize Deputy Chief from the San Francisco Police Department. Thank you, Chief Lazar. I want to say captain, but you went from a captain and you've moved on up in the ranks, and we appreciate you in the San Francisco Police Department and everything that you do to help keep our citizens safe. We also have, thank you, Karin, and the Union Street bid for your work, because I know your work and your advocacy is why we are here today. And why are we here today? We're here to talk about San Francisco's recovery, and that's why I am smiling. It is a great day in San Francisco. And when you think about where we are now and how far we've come, just sit in that moment. The Giants are first place in the league. They're not first place anymore? Okay. All right. Well, we hope that the Giants will become first place in the league. But they're playing and you can go to a game. Unfortunately, the Warriors didn't make it through, but that's okay. At least we got a few games in before they were X'd out of the playoffs. And what's also happening is the San Francisco Symphony is open. You can watch a performance there. Stern Grove is coming back with concerts, and that's going to be amazing. The Hilton Hotel just announced that it is opening, and I see Kevin Carroll from the Hotel Council. John's Grill, I know John Jr. is here. Thank you for joining us. Performances on Sundays, and so many activities, so many great events. The city is coming alive again. And as we begin to recover and we think about what happens downtown in Union Square, downtown is where about 40% of the jobs that exist in San Francisco, they're here in the downtown area. When we think about the economy and coming back, the retail and the business and the activities, this is the bread and butter of San Francisco. This is why we are able to pay for programs and resources and all the things that help out so many of our vulnerable communities. The tourists, the 20 million tourists who visit San Francisco every year, that pay the hotel tax, that shop at Macy's and a number of our small businesses. Downtown is the economic engine of San Francisco. And so it is so important that as we begin to reopen, that we reimagine what downtown can be. We have to make it a safer place for people who live and work here. Now, I'm a regular visitor to the downtown area, and I do hear from so many of the people who work here, many of the women in particular who work in retail, who catch the 31 Balboa and the 5 Fulton from the Western Addition, people I grew up with, who have expressed to me their concerns about their safety when they've never felt that way in San Francisco before. And what that means is we have to do more. We have to do more to keep people safe. We have to do more to make sure that people have a rewarding experience. They feel good about being here, because when they visit San Francisco and they leave, we want them to want to come back. We want people who live and work here to feel safe. Now, it's been about, I think, 2 years when I announced the ambassador program. Karin, you remember when you had that event and I said, we're going to bring retired police officers out of retirement and have an ambassador program solely focused on this particular area in Union Square. After a few years of bureaucracy, it finally happened. So right now, that ambassador program is really an important part of our recovery. The goal is to have the eyes and to ears on the streets. The goal is to make sure that when people are in crisis, we're able to address those challenges. And a perfect example is one time when I was down here near Crate & Barrel, a man clearly didn't have shoes on, needed some help, needed some support, and some of the ambassadors tried to help him, but what's next? What's next? How do we get him off the streets into a place where he can get the support he needs? And part of some of my recent announcements have been our street crisis response team, so it's not just about a police response. Our street wellness teams to check on people, to deal with folks in crisis. I get so many calls from so many people in this community concerned about not just their business and how this is impacting the quality of life in this community, but how are we going to do more to help these people off the streets? And so a combination of my investments in this upcoming budget have everything to do with trying to reimagine, beautify, provide the level of support necessary to bring this area back stronger than ever, to make it a vibrant, a more welcoming place, and make sure that people have great experiences. So what do some of those investments look like? Well, some of you remember I used to be the executive director of the African American Art and Culture Complex. And the thing I loved about that space is artists make communities come alive. People would paint on the walls. I'm not advising that to happen down here in downtown. People would dance in the parking lot and in the streets. I'm not suggesting that we do that and stop traffic. But we are going to bring our artists to this area. We are going to start to activate the community with local artists, providing resources to pay them, because I believe in paying artists and they deserve to be paid their worth. But to really bring them to this area and to create an environment at Holiday Plaza that will really activate the area. So we're going to be making some improvements and some investments. And yes, I'd like the cable cars to come back sooner than later, but I can't make that promise today, Karin. But the fact is, we're going to activate Holiday Plaza. We're going to bring in some new businesses, some activation. And so when you're getting off BART and you're coming to San Francisco, the first thing you can do is maybe grab a coffee or grab a San Francisco coffee mug or have this great San Francisco experience. So Holiday Plaza will be different than what it is now. It will be activated. Our ambassadors will be in the location. We will make it safe, and the goal is to have a great and rewarding experiences. So part of my budget will be to increase not just our ambassador programs with the retired police officers, but the ambassadors and the people that walk around this community and try to provide eyes and ears on the streets to address many of those challenges. And so our ambassadors, I know in the red coats, are joining us here today. So thank you for your work and your continued support of this community. Because they may not realize it's me in disguise, but I've seen them on occasion out there helping people, offering bottled water, trying to provide support and services. And we'll be right there with them with our street crisis response team and our street wellness team, concentrating on this area so that when we see people in crisis, we're able to respond quickly as a city and deal with it so all of you can focus on your businesses. That is our goal. The other thing that we are doing as we head down this road to recovery is really trying to focus on how do we make it easier for people to do business in San Francisco. And, I don't even want to name the stores that I love that closed because, I'm heartbroken over the fact that they are no longer in San Francisco. And I've reached out to a number of those stores who said, look, we may come back, but doing business in San Francisco is hard. Thanks to the voters, we passed Proposition H to help deal with some of the bureaucracy, but it wasn't enough. So I put out a business recovery plan that's supposed to be working its way through the Board of Supervisors. I put out a plan to make our shared spaces program permanent that's supposed to be making its way through the Board of Supervisors. But the board has messed with the wrong mayor. When they tried to butcher my legislation and water it down and make it even more difficult and complicated so businesses continue to struggle and have difficulty doing business in San Francisco, that's when I take a different sort of action. So if they want to continue down that path, my plan is to bring it to the voters, to put it on the ballot, and to make sure that you all have a real voice and that the voters support these efforts. Overwhelmingly, the people of this city, people who grow up and want to start their own small business. They shouldn't need $250,000 to give to the water department or some angel investor just because they want to sell their clothing or their mask or their artwork. It should not be so difficult. And as I said time and time again, my focus is to cut the bureaucratic red tape that make it impossible for people to do business in San Francisco. Because it's not just about creating an economic opportunity for the people starting these businesses, it's about creating jobs. It's about creating an increased tax base to support all these services that we all want to support communities in San Francisco. It goes hand in hand. So I am making that clear today, that if the board continues down this path, my plan is to bring it to the voters, and I know that you all will be with me when I do that at that time. So here's a couple of official announcements that I think I might have forgotten about, so that's why we had to write them down. Community ambassadors to Union Square in downtown, as I talked about, investments in the budget for activation and events, SF Wednesdays, a local artist will be performing 12 to 6 from July through October. That's going to be great. Improvements to Holiday Plaza, as I said, on Market Street. A series of performances at the former temporary Transbay Terminal, so activating that area downtown. And we're going to start ramping up in July throughout the summer months, because we know that we need to change this area. We need to make sure it comes alive. And I am so excited to see the activation in the people, eating at the various restaurants, shopping at the various stores, or just sitting right here in Union Square and people watching, just because we miss seeing faces. Eventually, these masks are going to hopefully go away. But in the meantime, continue to shine, San Francisco. We are open for business. Thank you all so much for being here today. And I want to introduce Peter from Sam's Grill.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. As you know, well, first of all, I want to thank the mayor and her team, because it's a well thought out plan. I mean, it's necessary. We need to revitalize downtown San Francisco. And as a small business owner, we spend a great deal of time here. I mean, we're here morning, noon, and night. And as a restaurant, Sam's Grill has been part of this community since 1867. That's, we've seen it all. I mean, if our walls could talk, which is a whole different story, so we'll leave that one for another time, but we've seen it. And we've recovered for it, and we continue to be here and look forward to the future. And after clocking in for 150 years, I feel as if downtown San Francisco is still a bit of a secret, and we're primed and ready for it to be rediscovered. I'm very pleased that small business is a component of this plan. Downtown, as the mayor said, is the economic engine of the city. And at this time, any support we have is greatly appreciated. We have the infrastructure in place. We have beautiful architecture. We have transportation hubs. We have parking. We have gathering spots that now we're starting to improve. And we have a vibrant history. And let's keep that all alive and well. I'm excited about the effort to regain our commitment to helping people revisit downtown with new eyes. And there's no better way to do this than to be kind and inclusive. We really want to create an environment where people feel welcome, where they feel comfortable, where they want to return to. At the end of the day, we're all social beings. We're all in this together. That's the bottom line. And so I hope that the next time that I see all of you, it's in a private booth at Sam's, or in the dining room, or in Sam's Tavern. I'm happy to invite all of you to come revisit San Francisco, to revisit downtown, to enjoy it, because we're made for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And I want to recognize Lori Thomas from the Golden Gate Restaurant Association. Thank you so much for being here. And I also want to say thank you to the Downtown Fisherman's Wharf, Yerba Buena, and East Cut Community Benefits District. Any way to shorten that name, the Fisherman's Wharf or something? The San Francisco Chamber of Commerce, the Hotel Council, Kevin Carroll's joining us, SF Travel, the Bar Owners Association. I think that's Ben behind that math. Thank you, Ben. Building Owners and Managers Association, all the city departments, which I mentioned before. Also, separately from the departments I mentioned, I want to mention thank you to the City Administrator, Carmen Chu, and the Department of Public Works. I've been wearing a lot of really awesome masks throughout this pandemic. I would say the majority of the masks that I wear look like they are very artistic and beautiful, and they usually match my outfits. Not as nice as Nancy Pelosi and her matching of her outfits, but pretty darn close. And the person who makes these masks is an incredible local artist who has been really a fierce advocate for a lot of the programs and the investments we're making. As a result of her advocacy, what we're doing in my budget is backfilling some of the cuts we anticipated for local artists through the Grants for the Arts program. And we'll continue to provide first ever guarantee income for artists here in San Francisco, a program that was recently launched so many great things for artists because, you know, let's face it, artists really make magic happen. They make the city come alive, both through the visual and performing arts. And so it's important we continue those investments. And at this time, to talk about the arts-related component of our plans for downtown is Debra Walker.
Good morning. I want to first off thank our mayor for the work she's done to have our city recover as it has for all of us, but especially for our arts community. Very early on in the process of dealing with the issue of COVID here in the city, the mayor stepped up and protected the funding for our arts organizations and our artists citywide, so that after school programs and education pods and the creative core, which actually brought artists in to help deliver food, vaccines, testing, all of the things that are associated with recovery, and the mayor actually stepped forward and made that happen. The arts contribute over $1.7 billion a year into our economy every year. San Francisco is an arts city. It's also important to know that for every dollar invested in the arts with grant programs, et cetera, you get a 17-fold return. So it's smart, efficient, and it also, as the mayor pointed out, it's where the spirit of our city comes from. Every neighborhood in the city is activated around the arts. You see the Paint the Void has managed the mural projects on all of the businesses that put wood on the front of their buildings. We brought artists in to paint murals all across town. When allowed, we brought in small performance and art into the shared spaces program, which now is going to be made permanent. This also important because this is really sort of where these ideas come from. When the mayor put together her economic task force to make recommendations on how our sectors recover, she appointed over a dozen arts professionals, not just to talk about the arts, but to engage in with all of the different sectors, to imagine how arts can be used as the catalyst it is. It's the magic the mayor talked about. We've all experienced it, and certainly we've all felt the absence of it until we started doing these programs. So the mayor deserves a whole lot of credit for all of these ideas. This is part of what we talked about in the task force, is activating around the city's open spaces where it makes sense and as appropriate and as allowed by the regulations to actually bring artists who are local together. I'm sure we'll also have some big name San Francisco artists that are part of this process. Downtown is devastated. And the last group to open are the offices and the restaurants, the inside bars, nighttime entertainment. The artist community has been devastated, one of the sectors with the highest unemployment rate. So this is a perfect opportunity to start really opening up our city again, bringing artists from all over the city down here. My hope is that this infrastructure that creates these performance opportunities can then be spread out into all of our neighborhoods where we have these shared spaces. This is a city. This is what will bring tourists in, both regionally and from the city. I mean, the hope is that we have these events downtown and folks from the Sunset and Richmond and Marina will come down and remember what it's like to be here. So the arts are a catalyst. You know, it is the magic that we need. There's a reason why the WPA included so many wonderful murals that we see today. This is history. You know, going through what we've been through is very historic. And I am really honored to be part of our arts community. I'm excited about our new leadership, Directors Remington and Brown, and our new Director of Economic Activity in the city, Kate Sophus. All of these folks know our city, know our arts, and are going to be doing more of these kind of projects. So I'm just really grateful. Thank you again, Mayor, very much. And thank you all.
When I was in high school in San Francisco at Galileo High School, Nothing made me more excited than when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, when we were in the courtyard, the music would blast over the PA, and then there was this whole pep rally for homecoming. Those kinds of things would happen all the time. And part of what brings a community alive and gets people excited about rooting for San Francisco has everything to do with all of a sudden, out of nowhere, where in a plaza like this, you see artists who are dancing and performing. Everyone stops in their tracks to look, and it puts a smile on people's faces. Holiday Plaza, out of nowhere, people are dancing and performing as folks are waiting in line to get their coffee. Or just imagine if people are singing and providing live entertainment in a way that just really puts a smile on people's face while they're waiting on the cable car. Part of activation has everything to do with making people feel good and feel alive and feel happy about their experience in San Francisco. So I'm taking my high school experience, my experience as a former arts director, and trying to make sure that everyone has a very similar experience all over San Francisco. Yes, I love the symphony. I used to play French horn. I was okay. That was in junior high. But you shouldn't have to only be able to go to the symphony to have that experience. Just imagine the symphony playing right here outdoors, where everyone gets that experience. That's what Opera in the Park is about. That's what all these great activities are about. And that's how we're going to bring San Francisco back. The arts, getting rid of bureaucracy, making the right investments, keeping people safe, cleaning up our city, and coming together just like we did to fight this pandemic. We're coming together to reimagine and recover from a very challenging time, and we're going to do so with a smile on our face. Thank you all so much for joining us here today.